Carol Scott, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This has been quite a year. I mean, let's talk about the state of race in America. I mean, you got the 1619 Project, George Floyd, Black Lives Matter. Where is America on the issue of race? Carol, I'll start with you.
Well, I think it's more divided than ever. And even though things have sort of come to a head, some of this could have been seen years ago moving in that direction. And I can remember in July 2016 giving an interview on CNN about Black Lives Matter. And this was after the 5 police officers had been slain in Dallas. And I pointed out that at that time that it was a very destructive Marxist movement. And I caught a lot of grief for making that statement. But we see Antifa, we see the political left. The Marxists are really driving the narratives. And unfortunately, a lot of Americans are deceived because they don't know what has hit them.
Scott, is that what's happened here? We've had, an issue that does need to be addressed, but we've had a group come in and exploit it for their own purposes.
Well, and I agree with Dr. Swain. This is not the first time, obviously, that our nation has gone through this. And with the murder of George Floyd, there was a highlight. It's been highlighted, a bright light has been shined on it. And Tony, that's why, the president and myself and others in the administration focus on the policies that have been placed forth for the minority communities, including African Americans, to help people that are in poverty, to get out of poverty, to create new jobs and new businesses. Because as I look at the things that are happening in our nation, a lot of times these things stem, not just from racism, but also when people act as if there is no hope or they don't think there's any hope. And so we've been working on economic development and community development and things of this nature, because oftentimes when a hopeless man or a woman thinks that there is not a light at the end of the tunnel, you see not only these type of actions, but others. And so my heart, obviously, for our country is to help people to see that there is hope, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and the policies that are being set forth are for all Americans.
And of course, we've seen that from this administration with the empowerment development zones that they've put in. And so that is occurring. But there's something deeper here, Carol Swain. I mean, you understand poverty. You came from poverty. You were told you couldn't do certain things, but you did them. You became very successful, a professor. You ran for mayor of Nashville. You are a national leader. There is hope, but part of it is messaging. But part of it is it not that there are those that want to exploit those that feel hopeless?
I would say that the destruction, the vandalism and violence that we see taking place on our streets, that is not coming from ordinary Black Americans. That I would say that the people that are pushing the narrative of the hopelessness and that America is broken because of systemic racism, those individuals have their own agenda, and it's not about Black people. If you go to the Black Lives Matter website and you read what they stand for are not things that will improve the lives of Black Americans. And if you follow Antifa, they just really want to destroy the whole American system. I think that America is a land of tremendous opportunities, that our young people are getting the wrong messages, and that part of it comes from the messages like what we get out of the 1619 Project, where they push the critical race theory, which argues that racism is permanent. If it's permanent, there's nothing you can do about it. It will always be with us. And that white people have a property interest in their whiteness. They have to divest themselves of their whiteness. All of the things that they are putting forth are things that will not bring Americans together. And with the 1776 Unite consortium that I'm a part of, through the Woodson Center, we focus on what whites and blacks have been able to do together as Americans. And the story of America is a story of overcoming and of people being able to rise from poverty like I did and to become part of the American dream. And I think that we have to gain control of our schools and the criminal justice system. It's not Black people in America who are out there saying defund the police. 81% of Black Americans want more police in their communities. So we need to realize that what's taking place is not representative of Black America. We need to empower the people in those communities to speak for themselves. And we need to do something about the terrorist groups that are driving the agenda right now.
Scott, when we look at the programs that the Trump administration have put forward, and they're really good in terms of the economic empowerment, but there's more to the equation. I mean, when we look at what's happening in many inner cities, it's not just the economic opportunities that are missing. Oftentimes the stepping stones to those economic opportunities are family structure, good quality education. So there's a multitude of factors that come into play here.
And that's true, Tony. And, you know, Dr. Swain has a tremendous testimony that we can all be encouraged by. And she came up at a time, you know, where it was even harder to be successful. And so, you know, God has really blessed Dr. Swain, but she's worked tremendously hard. She's taken advantage of the opportunities that have come her way in America. And today, when you talk about the policies, Tony, you know, with the opportunity zones that bring public-private partnerships inside of our distressed communities, and the First Step Act that looks at criminal justice reform, the funding to HBCUs, you know, that our historic Black colleges and universities can become centers of excellence, you know, and now the president and administration pushing for school choice, you know, that parents can give their children inside of these vulnerable communities and across America, you know, a better opportunity to receive a quality education, as you know, will be a great catalyst for success. And so school choice can be a stepping stone. Opportunity zones from an economic development and a social impact standpoint are stepping stones, and criminal justice reform are stepping stones to get people inside of our most distressed communities across America and beyond in other communities to give them that catalyst and that stepping stone and that foundation, if you will, to be successful in America. And I think oftentimes that is overlooked by other things that are going on in our country from a media standpoint. But as a grassroots, you know, economic development and community development standpoint, these policies are working in America, and many people in our country have benefited from it, and will continue to shout this message, but also to provide real solutions and results for people inside of our communities.
Scott, I want to stay with you for just a moment because I want to ask you another question. I know you've stated this, but I want you to summarize it again so people hear it. Because we're told this president doesn't care about the inner city, doesn't care about the minorities, that he is, you know, he's against them. But if you look at his policies and the policies of this administration, he's done more for those communities than previous administrations, a lot more.
Yes, sir, absolutely, Tony. And so I alluded to, you know, the Opportunity Zone initiative is one that goes inside of the most distressed and impoverished communities in our country. There's 8,764 opportunity zones or census tracts that make up opportunity zones where the median income is much lower than the state median income. The poverty level is higher. You know, the amount of people that have just actually graduated from high school is lower. And so these are communities in our country that haven't seen investment in decades. And the president, with the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, when that became law and he signed it into law, he created the White House Opportunity and Revitalization Council to go inside as a council of 18 agencies and bring about resources, both public and private, to build and to invest inside of these communities from an education standpoint, from an entrepreneurship standpoint, economic development, safe neighborhoods, education with faith leaders, business leaders, community leaders coming together. These are real policies. And if you look at the opportunityzones.gov website and you look at the best practices report, you will see the fruit of this labor that has been done inside the Opportunity Zone. And again, the First Step Act, you know, for criminal justice reform, which affects obviously a tremendous amount of African Americans and our minorities in our country. for criminal justice reform, the deregulation that the president and the administration has taken forth to help people to get licenses to become entrepreneurs and business owners. And then with our HBCUs, our historically Black colleges and universities, for permanent funding, for a 10-year funding for these colleges, not only to stay in existence, but to become centers of excellence and be incubators, if you will, for engineering and other education paths for young people. These policies are not just concepts, Tony. This is reality. And these are things that the president and his administration have done in our country for specifically the minority and distressed communities in our country.
And Scott, a very straightforward answer. Are those policies working?
Yes, sir, they are. If you look at the Council of Economic Advisors report that just came out with opportunity zones, and you will see it there on the website, $75 billion of private capital has been committed or invested inside of opportunity zones in our country. 1 million people lifted out of poverty, hundreds of thousands of jobs that are being created in just the last 2 years because of the opportunity zone initiative. And when people have a job, when people have quality housing, when people see that there is hope and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, man, American people are resilient. And when they see that there's opportunity, they attack it. And a lot of times this doesn't get the attention, but you know what? The proof of this is not only in the report, but in the lives of the people of America.
And Carol, I want to wrap up with you. I alluded to it. You mentioned it. Scott mentioned it. You're a success story, an American success story. You're not alone. There are many others, but you had to work for it and you earned it. But what we've found on many college campuses across America, they don't want those kind of stories told. You've been attacked.
It's always been that case. It's always been the case. I can remember when I was on the faculty at Princeton and I had Black colleagues to tell me that I didn't have to share my background with other people. And so I think that the success stories detract from the message that America is a horrible country. And, the Uncle Tom film that Larry Elder produced recently, it tells the story of conservative Blacks from different backgrounds, different ages, and this is a great country. And when President Trump says, "Make America Great Again," I know exactly what he's talking about. I know that I had opportunities because people cared about people like me. And as long as we have avenues where people can avail themselves of opportunities, there will always be people willing to come along and offer a hand up rather than a hand out. And I think that the message of opportunity and self-betterment, that it resonates with all Americans, and that many Black people see the difference, that more of them are going to see the difference, and they already do, between President Trump and previous presidents.
Well, both of your stories, Carol and Scott, speak loudly to that, to the American dream, to success, to hard work. You're both great Americans. Thank you so much for being a part of the Value Voter.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And folks, let's do our part. Let's take the challenge, let's pray, let's vote, and let's stand.